Welcome to another episode of Made in Sullivan County, where we visit places that you ask yourself, I wonder what they do in that building. Well, today we're at Treeline Helicopters, and they do a lot outside. Here's Chance.
I'm Chance Lell, and I'm the president of Treeline Helicopters located here in Bristol, Tennessee. We do power line work with helicopters. The majority of our work is the aerial trimming. We trim the right-of-ways along power lines, pipelines, and railroads. I grew up in Lebanon, Virginia, and moved to Bristol when I was 8 years old. I grew up on a farm. We did tobacco and hay. I played football as a freshman, and after that I got a job at a car customizing place. I loved to work with my hands, and so I went to school. I got A's and B's, but I also did the program where you can leave and work. So I did that my junior and senior year, as well as delivering newspapers at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I wanted to go to flight school. The reason for that, my uncle, most of my family was in the Marines. I wanted to go in the Marines, but they could not guarantee me a pilot job. So therefore I did it on the civilian side. There was a school in Abingdon at the time, North Star Aviation, that came up, and I went to flight school there. I was actually in flight school during high school, but I graduated battle in 2002. When I went to flight school, I thought I was going to be a med flight pilot, and then halfway through flight school, I realized you got to have a lot of hours before they'll even accept you. And then I'm a very fast tempo person. I started talking to med flight pilots, and they do a lot of sitting around. And that's when I realized, that's probably not the job for me at that point in my life. And I ran into a gentleman that did the aerial sawing, and I kind of become friends with him, and they brought me in under their wing and trained me up there. That was, I was 20 at the time, 2021, and this will be year 20 for me sawing. In 2019 is when we formed Treeline, and our base of operations at that time was the Abingdon, Virginia Highlands Airport. We actually got the community hangar there and made it theirs, and we were running out of there for about a year to a year and a half, and we grew so fast and had to keep up so much inventory, they did not have any other hangars available for us. So that's when we started looking, and we looked up and found this building here, the old Apple International helicopter building, and we bought it, remodeled it, and moved in here in about I think the first quarter of 2021. We started with one helicopter, and we had about 5 employees until we moved to this building here. We've got 11 now. We have 2 helicopters running full time, and we're looking to buy a 3rd by the end of the year. Running an aerial saw is extremely hard. It's one of the hardest things you can do. It's a lot of multitasking, but I can still remember the first time I picked up the saw. I was in Elkhart, West Virginia. I'm 19 years old, and I tell you what, the adrenaline was really crazy. We have someone in the office that schedules all the jobs, gets everything lined up. And then, they are forecasting the weather, breakdowns and stuff like that. So they're talking to our customers, keeping everybody up to date within a 2-week window when we're going to finish, so that when we do finish a job, we can go straight to the next job. Our main job right now is clearing the power lines. We do transmission lines, we do sub-transmission lines. We actually even do distribution lines with overhang removal, where you have to piece the limbs up really small, keep from tearing the line down. But as well as that, we do power restoration. So just like last year when the hurricane came here and did a lot of devastation, we ended up having 3 helicopters. It started out just delivering supplies and getting people out of some of the troubled areas. And then after that, then we went into power line restoration. So we were cutting limbs off of the lines. A lot of poles had been broken, power lines had been blown over, so then we actually set a lot of new poles, and then we also do side pulling, where you pull a rope in for the power line, a lead rope, and then they'll pull the power line in after that. So we did a lot of power line construction as well. It was just a normal work day for us. We had no idea anything was going wrong or anything that happened, and we were actually getting ready to head out to Boone, North Carolina to do some work for a power company over there. We got some calls from the state police, and that's when they informed us, they were getting so many calls that they didn't know what to do. So we decided, we'll help what we can. So at the time we had me and another pilot here. So we took 2 helicopters to Jonesboro, and then that's when we realized, just how bad the devastation was. It was bad. There were houses gone. We were flying along, and you just see the foundations. You don't see anything else. It's all gone. And at that point, then I called another friend of mine that was off, because I had another helicopter here, told him the situation. He came down from West Virginia, and then we ended up running 3 helicopters for an entire month, delivering supplies, like I said, getting people out of some of the bad areas, getting supplies into the areas that you could not get a vehicle to. I mean, the roads were completely gone. And then once we got all that under control, then we started, getting back to the power line restoration, trying to clear the power lines, getting the limbs off of it, setting new power poles up because they had broke off, and then stringing up new wire. But we spent about three to 4 weeks pretty much nonstop doing that.
And I'm sure they are so appreciative.
Very, very. They actually had several dinners for us that we went back down there, and had dinner with the community. So in a day's time on transmission, we can trim anywhere between 4 to 7 miles of line both sides. And then when you get into distribution, that varies on how heavy the vegetation is. Sometimes we'll get an average of a couple to 3 miles a day. We do have work all over. We've worked as far as Maine to the north, and as far as Louisiana to the west, and then all the way down to Florida. Air crews are on a 3-week on, 3-week off rotation, Sunday to Sunday. And then when they're on rotation, they're usually in the field. They're not actually here at the base. But once we finish a job up, the saw gets taken apart, loaded on top of the service truck, and then the service truck will go to the next area. The helicopter gets flown to the next area. We do not trailer it. And then once we get there, we put the saw back together and resume work. Our normal day consists of, usually the helicopter and the saw is already at the landing zone. So we'll be driving the service truck back and forth from the hotel. So at the hotel, before the service truck even gets moved, we are sumping the fuel tanks. That's very important, keeping the water out of the fuel. So we sump the fuel tanks in the morning before the truck even moves. And then you're going to see us go to the landing zone where we meet the ground crew there. We're going to be working for the day. And then we have a tailgate safety meeting. We'll go over that. That can take anywhere between 15 minutes to upwards of an hour, depending on what you're doing for the day. But you're going to talk to the guys, make sure they understand, what we're going to do today, the process that we're going to do it, the do's and don'ts. You're going to hand out the radios. Everybody's going to sign the job briefing. And then depending on what power line you're on or what company, sometimes you have emails to send out for deconflictions for other helicopters that are working on the power lines. Or you may just be as simple as making a phone call saying, hey, we're getting ready to go to work. In the summer, obviously, we work longer hours because of sunlight. So, a typical day may be 10 or 12 hours in the summertime. In the wintertime, it may be as short as 6 or 8. When we're flying, the helicopter will carry, without the saw, you can get about 2 hours out of the helicopter. But when you're picking that saw up, it's a lot of weight for the helicopter. So we've trained the pilots, they can mentally figure out how much fuel they can take before they take off. But your average flight time is probably 45 minutes to an hour. You're flying, then you'll come back, which during that you're in radio contact with our service truck. He'll give you fuel checks every 20 minutes because you have a lot going on. You're hanging out, you're looking down just so you don't forget to check the fuel gauge. So every 20 minutes he's giving you a fuel gauge check. You'll come back every 45 minutes to an hour, and that's when the ground guy will service the saw, tighten the belts, do whatever's needed. You kind of get out, stretch, and then get back in the helicopter and go again. At the end of the day, we shut down the helicopter. They're going to do some maintenance on the saw, just check everything over, make sure it's good for the next day. And then more importantly, we do a post-flight on the helicopter. We'll basically inspect everything on the helicopter, make sure we didn't have any damage or anything like that, make sure everything looks good. The reason we do that in the evenings, let's say, we have a cracked exhaust or something, well, that gives us our mechanics time to drive all night to get to the helicopter to be fixing it the next morning, instead of finding it the next morning and losing a whole day. We have all our in-house mechanics. We have 2 mechanics that rotate in. They're on a 3-week on, 3-week off rotation. So we have a mechanic on site all the time. We are not carrying passengers. We are running Part 133 with this external load. So there's not a limit as to what you can fly. But most pilots are not going to fly all day long because it's just very stressful. So, but the helicopter behind me you see is a MD 500. It's a D model. It's an older model. It's a 1975. The only thing that has that much time on it is actually the shell. Everything else on a helicopter has a time, hour, or life monthly limit. So everything on it's probably been replaced a half a dozen times since then. But in the powerline industry, you're going to mostly use the MD 500D model for the small footprint. It has a small rotor span, which is what you need to get down into the powerline environment. You get into some really, really tight areas. More so on the powerline construction side than on the sawing. But so most of the time you'll see everybody using a 500D model. The payload on this helicopter with an external load is 3,550 pounds. Now, an aerial saw only weighs about 800 to 850 pounds. We do have a couple variations that'll go down to 750 pounds when we're working in the mountains in this area. As you get in the mountainous terrain, once you get above 3,000 feet, the higher you go and the warmer it is, the higher the density altitude is, which in return, the helicopter has less performance. So we have a couple saws that are 50 to 100 pounds lighter than the normal ones.
So is your other helicopter the same?
Yes, it's the same D model. It's black, obviously, but it's a D model and it's a 76 model. We don't really use the newer ones, believe it or not, for two reasons. The newer ones are heavier, and in the saw and construction industry, that does make a difference, more so in the sawing industry. So we use the older models, and they're hard to find. That lets you know it's running, and then throttled up. That lets you know the saw's throttled up. You're ready to start trimming. We weld the cages up here. Any of the machining, minor machining we do here, any of the major machining, we have a machine shop do that. But pretty much everything's made in-house for the saw, the cages. The electronics is all made in-house. It's all high-end remote control airplane stuff. We've talked a lot about helicopters, and we have talked about the aerial saw, but now we're going to go into a close overview to show you everything how a saw works. All right, guys, as you see here, this is one of our aerial saws. This is actually a 9-bladed saw. It's a little bit lighter for our mountainous applications. The tube here, this is a chromoly metal tube that houses everything in the saw, and anything you see aluminum on this saw is going to be aircraft grade. It's T6 6061 aluminum. Inside the cage here, this is a 26.5 horsepower Kohler engine, a V-twin 4-stroke, and then it is gasoline driven. You can see the fuel tank up there to the right, and then your battery over here to the left. This is a lithium-ion battery just for weight purposes. And then on the back of the engine is a industrial centrifugal clutch. And then once we get these engines in, we modify them. We put our own wiring harnesses on them. Everything on this saw is remote controlled from the helicopter. We have our own brain box here, and then our own light bar here. This light bar is for the pilots. It will let the pilots know what the saw's doing. Sometimes it's hard to see if you've got a blade pinched, or if you have the helicopter, if you have the saw throttled up or down or not. In the helicopter, you can't hear the saw. All you hear is the helicopter. So these lights lets the pilot know what's going on down here. And then on the back side, you can see the centrifugal clutch here. This is a cog belt, same thing it's like on a Harley, and it's driven down the boom. The engine is turning about 3,750 RPMs, and then we step that down to 2,400 RPMs. These belts run through these beams. This is a picture of the pulley that is inside the beam here. You can see the double cog. So the belt will come to this pulley here, and then the next belt will ride on this side down, and then alternating all the way down, and this is what the belts look like. The blades are sandwiched on here with a cap and a bolt, and on each side of that blade is a piece of Teflon, and that Teflon serves as a clutch. These blades are not bolted to this pulley. So as we are trimming, if we trim too fast and a blade stops, the rest of the blades continue turning. And that little bit of give actually makes the blades cut better. So this is a 5-inch aluminum tube. It's made right here in town at Tri-Cities Extrusion, and it is T6 6061 aluminum. Now above the saw, which you can't see here, we usually have 90 feet of aluminum pipe, and then at the top of that pipe is the connector that we connect to the helicopter. The entire unit weighs roughly 800 pounds. This is one of the blades here. These are 1/4-inch steel blades, and they are 25 inches in diameter. And our saws run between 9 and 11 of these, depending on which saw we have. You know, it varies significantly, but I'd say about $80,000 is about one of these saws costs now. This engine here is brand new. We have just wired it up and have not even put it on the test stand yet to run it. But your clutch will mount there. Like I said, it's just a centrifugal clutch, so when you throttled up, the pads spread out and engage, and the blade starts spinning. Your first light there lets you know that the battery switches on. Your second light lets you know that your fuel pump is running, it's ready to start. Your third light is oil pressure, so once we start it, that lets you know it's running, and then throttled up. That lets you know the saw's throttled up, you're ready to start trimming. You have 30-foot sections of pipe. This is the coupler here. As you pick this helicopter up, you'll keep the pipe straight, so then this sets up like this, and then you pick the saw up. But each section of pipe is 30 foot, and as you can see, we have cables that run through the center of the pipe. Everything is about safety, so if any of these joints break, if this breaks, this joint breaks, the pipe breaks, there's metal cable in the inside of that, so you don't drop it on the power line and bring everything back. Like I said, you have anything on the truck you need to repair these cages and go back to work in the field. Connecting the saw to the helicopter, at the top of the helicopter, you have a universal joint attached to a square tube, and that square tube slides up into the bottom of the helicopter, into the trapeze, into the hook. And the way our trapezes are designed, we have a dual hook system on the helicopter. Anything mechanical will and eventually fail, even though the hooks are good for 1,000 hours or 5 years. The way we fly, every 1,000 hours they're going to get replaced. That's usually about a year's worth flying. But even during those intervals, you can have accidental releases, and when that happens, you have the secondary hook to catch the saw, excuse me. So if you ever do have that happen, you'll feel the little jolt on the helicopter, you know you got a problem. You don't drop the saw on the power line, you can take it back to the LZ. This is what the inside of one of our saw ships look like. A lot of the interior is taken out. Anything that we're not using is removed for weight purposes. So this helicopter is a lot lighter than a version that is set up for VIP or anything else like that. But you can see all of our saw controls right here on the collective. So we don't ever have to take our hands off of the controls to operate the saw. We do have an armrest here, and that's what we lay our elbow on, and we're actually hanging out the helicopter looking down. Our sight path is right here when we're looking at the saw. And then your two critical gauges, your TOT and your torque, is right here. We move them over from the dash, as well as a caution light here. Lets me know any caution light I have on the dash, that's going to light up. I will see that in my peripheral vision and know I have a problem. This is one of the rotators. This is what's at the very top of the pipe. So you got 90 feet of pipe, then you have this rotator on top. And this, guys, is what actually slides up into that square receiver. And then your hook hooks here and holds the weight. The reason we have a motor on this is for ferrying the saw from the landing zone to the cut area. We're able to turn the saw more aerodynamically in the wind, so you can ferry a little bit faster with it. Then once you get to the right of way, you'll turn the saw back into the cut position and you can go to work. This is one of our service trucks here in our fleet. It's a GMC 6500. It's long wheelbase, as you can see here. You can tell that the truck is outfitted with a lot of stuff. Your black spots up here, these contain the doors. In the summertime when we're flying with the helicopter, we'll take the doors off, believe it or not. They'll just get stored up there for storage. Inside, we have all of our tools, our radios, our equipment. Up here is mostly our helicopter stuff, as far as consumables, oil, stuff like that. And as you walk around to the back of the helicopter, you can see the fuel tanks on the inside. We have 6 tanks in here for a total of about 550 gallons. These 2 smaller tanks right here, that is for the gas, that is for the saw. On a typical day, if we fly all day long, we're gonna burn about 300 gallons of jet fuel, and we'll burn about 12 gallons of high-octane gas through the saw. We have a hose reel there to our left. That's what we fuel the helicopter with. We roll it out. And then as you walk around here, this is our crane. Like I was talking about, when we move from job site to job site, that saw gets taken apart, and this crane is how we load it on top of the truck. You can see the pipes on top of the truck now, and of course we have the saw off in the shop. But we have extra beam, extra engines, pretty much anything you can think of that'll break on that saw, we carried on our truck. All right, guys, we talked about the service truck and having all the parts on it. We're now in one of our parts rooms here at our base in Bristol, Tennessee. And as you can see a lot of the parts here. These are the ends of the pipe as they go together. So this actually goes in the inside of that 30-foot aluminum pipe. And these are the couplers. So they'll go like that, and then you put a clamp around it. But as you can see, we have just about anything is pre-made and on the shelf here as far as like your pulleys. These are your pulleys that go inside the beam here. These do have 3 bearings on each pulley, so these do wear out, so we keep a lot in stock and we rebuild everything. But we have bearings, the pulley faces, these are the end caps. So the blade gets sandwiched in between this pulley and that end cap, just like that. And then a bolt goes through and tightens it down. And then you can see here, these are our reducer pulleys that slow the blades down. These are the clutch housings. These are the centrifugal clutches. And then of course we have extra engines. We have, this is stuff for the service truck. This is the hose reel, the grounding reel, the fuel pump. And then this is a cage here that's been made that has been tested, and now it's ready to be sent out for powder coat. For people that want to get in touch with us, our website is www.treelinehelicopters.com. It'll explain what we do on there, as well as have some pictures and videos, and it also has a career page where they can get in contact with us if they have any questions about pursuing this as a career. I have a young man named Reed Buchanan. He came to me when he was 16 years old, said he wanted to be a pilot. So I talked to him and his dad. His dad was actually my middle school football coach. But I gave him the outline he needed to do and told him, to learn his airplane stuff first and learn the helicopter. I gave him the school, which is down in Pigeon Forge. And he did everything to the T, and then come back to me and said he wanted a job, and I hired him. And he's actually one of our lead pilots on one of our helicopters now. And he is just 21 years old. There's multiple ways we can do it. With Reed, we literally trained him from scratch. So we brought him in here. You get him used to the helicopter, just flying the helicopter. And then you get him used to external load, which is carrying something underneath the helicopter. And what you do is, he goes in the left side of the helicopter, I go on the right side, and we just carry a tire on a rope. And he gets really good at that until he can hold it steady. And then we transition into the saw. But before they're even a pilot, they're going to learn to be a groundman. They're going to learn everything about the saw so that when the saw breaks, they also know how to fix it as well. And that does help when you're flying it and you have an issue, you have a better understanding of how the saw works. You usually know what's wrong with it before you get it back to the landing zone anyways. Well, they do have mechanical ways to trim. The mechanical ways are really good for flat areas. Obviously, in this area, there's not many flat areas. It's a very mountainous area. So what they can't get with something as like a giraffe, we come in and trim, but a lot of times it's cost effective just to have us trim the entire line. The major advantage between us and anybody else is how long I've been doing it. I've been doing it for 20 years. Most of your saw pilots out there are going to average about 4 to 6 years. It's hard work, it really is, and they'll do it for 4 to 6 years and usually go on to something a little bit easier. But for me, I like the challenge, and this is year 20. I've got just over 20,000 hours sawing. It's hard mentally. You know, running an aerial saw, there's a lot going on. You're flying the helicopter, but then also you're hanging out, looking down, operating a saw. So it's a lot of multitasking, but while you're doing that, you're gonna have ground crews on the ground looking for stuff, spotting for you. So you're gonna be talking to them constantly. You're gonna be constantly looking for hazards in front of you and behind you. So it is a lot going on. What sets us apart from other methods of trimming, you know, with the aerial saw, when you come into an area, you know, the vegetation can be removed faster with a helicopter than your conventional equipment, but worker exposure, you know, what we come in and do in, let's say, a week might take a crew 3 months to do. So then they're out there a lot longer, maybe in harsher conditions. And then also a lot of times their mechanical trimmers are not going to be able to get everything. So then you got guys climbing trees. That's very dangerous. So the worker exposure is minimized a lot with the helicopter, as well as just getting it done faster. We do not have a footprint. You know, when you've got all these guys and equipment stuff coming on everybody's property, if the weather's not good, you know, they may put ruts in the ground. They can't help that. If there's fences, they have to take the fences down, put the fences back up. You know, with the helicopter, there's none of that. You come in, you trim, they can literally walk in there, remove the brush, and, you know, get out of the way. So the footprint of the helicopter is almost zero.
Thanks, Chance. What a great story and a unique business. For more episodes of Made in Sullivan County, please visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel at BTES Videos.